turned off. There, my volume is turned on. Welcome back to our mobile unit. We are here nice and warm. It's actually been extremely nice up here in the weather in Canada, in Alberta. Just extremely nice. It's been sunny out. We were outside yesterday getting things kind of buttoned up for winter. But anyways, today we are going to retrain our anxious brain. This is the book that we've been kind of going over. I'll see if you can see it there in the screen. You see, it's not really picking it up, is it? There it is. Retrain your anxious brain and practical and effective tools to conquer anxiety. Now, the author of this book is John Tillam Paris. He's an MFT, okay? That's a marriage family therapist. And he did the book in conjunction with Daily Deanna Schwartz. Excellent book. We're on chapter 3. And to get to chapter 3, we got to go to the therapist studio. So I'm going to leave the camper here just for a moment. And so I'll give you guys this here little commercial. I'm just going to walk over to the place. Okay, we're here. We're in the studio, the therapist studio. I welcome everyone to the show. And please, if anybody has any comments or on therapy, let me know. I'm kind of going at this cold turkey along with you guys. I'm just using this book and when I read it, I don't have it to put on the screen or anything like that. But we'll read through it. Now, this next chapter, we're in chapter 3. And if you want to follow along on these chapters, there is a playlist on our channel called, what's it called? It's called something. Here, just hold on. Here's what it's called. Welcome to a new broadcast, XJW Soundboard. Okay, that's the playlist on our channel. So that's what this is filed under. Now, Marcus came on once. He may come on again. He's quite busy. So this is the fill-in. We're trying to keep the show going every Wednesday at about this time and kind of covering some of this stuff. There is some new XJW therapists out there we've been talking to, and we're hoping to piggyback on her show as well. And it's kind of an XJW soundboard where you can come on and talk to a therapist and we'll figure that out. But in the meantime, you're stuck with me. So here we go. Challenging the notion of consensuous reality. That's what it says here. Consensus reality. Did I get that right? I can't really. There it is. Challenging the notion of Gotta get the light just right. And there's a Albert Einstein. Here's his quote. He said, "Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one." I thought he was going to say a very pleasant one, but he didn't say that. He says it's a very persistent one. Reality, this illusion that we're in. So, what do you think, as the audience? Do you think reality is merely an illusion? I don't know. I don't know my name some days. No, it's not that bad. Okay, so let's get into this. Let's see what these professionals are telling us over the many years. This is John talking. He's kind of giving us his life story a bit through the book. And he says, over the many years that I've been treating patients who suffer from stress and excuse me for a second. There. We'll get a little bit more light on the subject. Okay, so he's been treating patients over many years who suffer from stress, excessive worry, and even severe anxiety disorder. And he says, I've discovered that many of these individuals cling to the idea that there's a consensus reality, one way to think about and respond to something specific based on what they've been taught is believed by most people. So that's what I guess what we're talking about here. I was wondering what that meant. Consensus reality. Well, here it is, one way to think. And as XJWs, we know that. We came out of the org, the JW org has one way to think. And either you're in the truth or you're out of the truth, you know. And that's what we used to say, is so-and-so still in the truth? You know, that was the saying of the day. You know, hey, have you ever heard from so-and-so? Is he still in the truth or is he still out of the truth? So it's one way of thinking, and that's what we're talking about here. One way to think about and respond to something specific based on what they've been taught, what we've been taught, and believed by most of us. Well, I believed it for 30 years. So here we go. Consensus reality is a mental view that we unknowingly subscribe to as the ultimate truth. Consensus reality. This is interesting. It's the mental view that we unknowingly subscribe to as the ultimate truth, the mental view. So this is the truth, the paradise. We subscribe to this, jw.org. We subscribe to it. And we unknowingly subscribe to this as the ultimate truth. That's what this consensus reality is. It's a mental view that this illusion is the truth, this illusion. And that's the thing with some of these studios, you know, that we put up here. You can't see our hand gestures. Sometimes we're just better back in the camper, in my opinion. It's clear. The picture's clear. Good old well water. Okay. So this is very interesting. I have not pre-read this, folks. We're doing this together, so this is interesting. Consensus reality, this mental view that we subscribe to as the ultimate truth. And that's what it is. When we were at JW, we thought we had the ultimate truth. Now let's carry on. It says, it's a narrow and a limited way of looking at life that accepts, sometimes with fervor, that a single unified reality in the world for everything exists and that you must abide by it. That's the Watchtower. That is the Watchtower. They nailed it. If you could sum the Watchtower up in a different way, like from a psychiatric way, this is it. It's a narrow and limited way of looking at life that accepts, sometimes with fervor. And as a JW, we'd go out in a ministry with fervor. Some of us would. Others didn't do it. That's just the way it was, right? So this is how they wanted us to be, as like little soldiers running out there with fervor. And that a single unified reality in the world for everything exists through JW org, right? Through this paradise, through this very narrow paradise. Everyone's going to be destroyed. We're in a big wicked world. The whole world's going to be destroyed. And it's a very limited way of looking at life, isn't it, folks? So here's what it goes on to say. This kind of reality is a fictional conviction, and I've often said that it's fiction, this whole paradise. It's all man-made. This fictional conviction that often possesses inflexible rules about how to think and act. That nails it for jw.org. So according to this concept, individuals believe that there's only one opinion or one path to follow for how to succeed in life. And that's what they believe. There's only one way. Is their way or the highway? They might as well send you to hell when they apostatize you, demonize you, send you out the door. That's what they're doing. They're burning you with fire at Armageddon. That's what they're telling all their people, is that you're burning. You're dead. You left the truth. So according to and they say it's worse once you know the truth and you're baptized and you leave the truth. That guy is a way worse off than the worldly people. You remember that? That's what they said about us. They said that about us. I was talking to my good wife this morning, and I said to her, now that I know everything I know, I'm looking back at my life. I was PMO at the age 30, 32, 30, 35 for sure. I went completely PMO. And I thought the elders were Pharisees, Pharisaical. So I was 30 years old. I got into this mess when I was 20. So I was into it for 10 years. And it took me 10 years, but I thought it was still the truth. I thought the congregations were just going Pharisaical. That's what I thought. I thought it was still the truth. And I didn't, of course, know anything about the elders book. I didn't really get that part of it. But I thought it was the truth. And so I thought these elders are just Pharisees. Just Pharisees. How could they do stuff like this? And so anyways, that's kind of how I went through it. So I was PMO because a normal Jehovah's Witness does not think the elders are Pharisees. So I went through the next 20 years thinking that the elders were. I was always prepared, and it seemed like I was it was me against the elders. Somehow it was like that all the time. And lo and behold, I get out and I get this far out. I'm out for 10 years, and I meet the ex-elder in the grocery store, and he tells me so-and-so, my book study conductor, was a pedophile. Wow. The guy that had me in the back room all those times was a pedophile. He was the guy whipping me and taking my privileges away. He was my book study overseer, and he did not like me. In fact, I had to have my son go to another congregation because he was upset that my son was staring at his daughters at the book study. He was a pedophile. And so I sent my son off to another congregation to protect him. He never ever did get fellowship, but this guy was really after him. This was sickening. But anyways, that was the last year of my life as a JW. And that stuff sticks with you, and that's why we're in therapy here together, talking about it. It sticks with you. Now, according to this concept, individuals believe that there's only one opinion, one path to follow, or how to succeed, or even how to love one another, or how to worship God, or what and how to feel about things that come up from a day-to-day living. And JW.org is the most, out of any organization that I know, they're the biggest culprits, of getting into people's lives, getting into their bedrooms, getting into how whether they shave or whether they don't. You see, 2 years ago, you couldn't wear a beard. You were put in the private room, all your privileges removed. And then 2 years later, all the governing body members, or at least half of them, are wearing beards, and they're making funny jokes about it. They want it all to go away. You see, but some of us, we were tarnished with this beard thing and some of this stuff. Water's good. Now, John says, for example, throughout most of my childhood and young adulthood, I clung to the consensus reality that I picked up from my father that said, you should never trust anyone. My father, and JW parents say that too, right? They say the whole world's demonized. He says, my father had apparently been treated poorly by his family of origin, whom he hated, and then later by many business partners throughout his life. So his motto was love everyone, but trust no one. You ever hear that one? I've heard that one. Love everyone, but trust no one. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. You got to trust. Once you trust, it changes. It puts you to a new level. There's trust is important. And we can get burned with our trust too, right? We're going to probably read about this. He says, my father had apparently been treated poorly. His business partners, his motive was, yeah, trust no one. He was a very, very bitter about it, and he often gave me vivid examples of many betrayals he'd suffered in life. It's kind of like us XJWs, eh? Sadly, he never connected these events with how profoundly hurt he was. He was only tuned into the anger he felt about it, because the anger clouded his vision. My father did not allow himself to heal from the ways he'd been burned because he never challenged his thinking. So instead, he decided that all people were bad, and his consensus reality was that no one should ever be trusted, became his safety shield. And he then passed the same absolute belief on to me. He meant well by trying to protect me, but it affected me deeply because I adopted this reality, or his reality. And I turned into a suspicious person who feared letting others get close to me, like my father did. And the one way reality that I never challenged left me lonely and scared for many years. So that sounds very JW-ish if we want to do the parallel. If you grow up as a JW, you have a clouded vision of the world. The world's wicked. It's gonna burn that into your mind, and that all people are bad. So you're gonna have the same consensus reality that this John has that wrote this book, that no one should ever be trusted. So how many of us come out of the religion like I am, and it's very hard to trust again. In fact, it causes me lots of anxiety because I've gotten burned so hard in what they call the truth. That's where I got burned. And when you get burned that hard, it's hard to trust again. So I can imagine a lot of you guys watching, what you're feeling right now. Trust. No one should ever be trusted. Well, let's carry on. He says this kind of rigid thinking contributes to increased anxiety over a prolonged period of time and can leave you scared and ambivalent, ambivalent, ambivalent about people and what's going on in your life. What does that mean? Yeah, like you're not sure about people. You don't trust people. You're not sure about people. I know that's a problem I have. Big time. Might as well admit it. We're in therapy, right? We might as well admit it. There's no use hiding this stuff. I don't like to admit some of this stuff, but it's true. I have a problem with trust. Um, Fortunately, I have my good wife to kind of balance things out and kind of go for a walk, Vern, and rethink. We'll talk about it again. Yeah, but I don't know. Let's see how John here is going to help us fix this. I'm looking for fixes. Okay, the kind of rigid thinking, it increases our anxiety over a prolonged period of time and can leave you scared and ambivalent about people. And you may spend an inordinate amount of time second guessing about what's right or wrong, and even wasting time trying to be perfect. Or it can cause you to feel oppressed or inhibited by the inflexible regulations that you're convinced you should adhere to. Either way, you can become a slave to the cues you get from what society seems to dictate, or family expectations of you, or religious mandates, or other people's or areas of your life that matters to you. Did I say that all right? Well, what it's saying is by thinking this way, you deprive yourselves of being able to focus on your internal voice, or better yet, your own view of your life and the people and circumstances you encounter. So we're in the org. If you're in the org, well, we got out of the org, but we were in the org, so that's what it was like. Um, you know, we'd spend I'd spend a lot of times, he says, inordinate amount of time second guessing about what's right or wrong. How much time did we spend going to bond volumes and doing research on whether this is wrong, or is this acceptable, or is that acceptable? Like, we could never formulate our own opinion, our God-given opinion, even with what to eat. Well, do those hot dogs have blood in it, byproducts? People would be asking you, if they came over and you were serving the kids hot dogs, right? Well, the mothers would actually want to see the package in the fridge to read the ingredients to make sure there's no byproducts. That's a fact. And that's rigid, very rigid. And this is what it's like being a Jehovah's Witness. You go to even your own brothers and sisters' houses, and so you bring your kids over there, right? And their kids are playing with Smurf dolls, right? Smurf dolls. And so you kind of, you give your wife kind of the evil eye, and you drive home and you say, hey, our kids can't associate with them no more. They're playing with demonized toys. That's what it's like being a JW. So here's what it says. You feel oppressed or inhibited by inflexible regulations. And these aren't even in the Bible, these things, folks, that I'm telling you about. These are just feelings that some JW gets because of the Smurf doll, whatever. It's just a fabric full of foam like any other teddy bear that you get at the toy store. But yet, it's not in the Bible. There's nothing. It's not demonized. I don't know, unless I'm looking at this wrong. This is just we're oppressed. We're inhibited. Everywhere you go, a JW is watching you. Someone's watching you to see if you're doing something wrong. And that's the way it is. So either way, you can become a slave to the cues you get from what the society, this even says it right, what society? Well, we used to call JW Org the society, what the society seems to dictate of your family or the religious, everything, every area of our life, right down to our dress, how we shaved. So he goes on here. He says, I'll discuss how to create your own reality later. Right now, I want you to understand where your current perspective of reality may come from. So that's important, I guess. We have to figure this out. We have to figure out where we got all this from, how we became us. And he says, awareness is the first step to challenge any consensus reality way of thinking. So, so that's it in a nutshell. Is awareness. I think, if you're struggling with alcoholism, well, the first step when you go to AA is to admit that you're an alcoholic. You got to sit there in a room full of people, and there's going to come a time you got to stand up and give your name. And I've never been there. My uncle used to actually run AA, and he did that for most of his life, helping a lot of people. He was an alcoholic. And the first step is to admitting that you have a problem. So that's what we're doing, admitting that we have to create our own reality, that our consensus reality is skewed right now. Could be. Maybe you've already created your own reality already, and I'm just a little behind. Okay. So it's critical to understand that there is no such thing as a real consensus reality. What do you mean there's no such thing? Okay, well, let's carry on. He says there's no such thing as reality at all. What? No reality at all? Well, what are we doing here? What am I doing here talking to you guys? Oh, I'm just talking to this light in the computer. There's no one actually here. He might be right. Okay, well, let's read on. It says, in fact, there is just how you see life through your own personal filter. Interesting. So I'm talking into this light and I'm seeing my face out of the StreamYard program I'm in. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe you guys never have been real. Maybe this is just all fake. Well, he goes on to say, consequently, you have the power to change the filter and develop a new vision of life. And once you can do that, a whole new world of conscious thinking can open up for you, In time, you may begin to comprehend I have the power to create my own reality. I get it. I get it. Okay, so let's think about it. Let's go back. So what he's really talking about is this real consensus reality. So being in the JW org, it's all fake. This is all a fictional story. The paradise, the 1914. They had to change the dates on when Rome was destroyed. Was it, what was it, 587 or 607? 587 or 607? What does the history book say? And then once you do the research, you found that JW org had to make it up. They had to change the dates. And even that whole prophecy thing in Daniel is nonsense. Anyways, Jesus never referred to that. He says his kingdom is in heaven. He says you can pray for it to come to earth. He says the kingdom is in heaven. Everyone's going to heaven. That's the way I read it after getting out, but it's a different reality. It's not the same reality that the Jehovah's Witnesses have. So sometimes we have to challenge those realities, I think. And even my reality is based on fiction. Is the Bible, like, I don't know, like this is all just stuff we read in the Bible, right? So I get it that these realities that we create are not real. They're just our own, in our own mind, what we think. We think the paradise is coming. The Mormons think that something else, a little different. Michael is what? Jesus? Or is he the archangel? You see, everyone has a different reality. Is Trinity real? Is it not? JWs have a different reality on that. But yet, everyone, both sides, these are different consensus realities. I believe this person believes in Trinity, this person doesn't. What do I believe in? Well, I don't know yet. It's kind of all mixed up. It's another discussion. This is therapy. This is not Bible discussion. Okay, but the problem is it's all mixed up in our heads. And so we all this Bible stuff becomes our consensus reality. So what do you believe? Do we believe in the paradise? Do we believe in Armageddon? All these things. These are serious things that we have to figure out. What do we believe in? Okay, we're going to carry on. I get it. It's all fake in our brains. You're right. There's a certain amount of like going out and planting a garden and eating and stuff. Like there's real life stuff, but there's then this stuff in our head, like the paradise is coming and the world's wicked, and like the list goes on. I can wear a beard. I can wear a beard now, but I couldn't 2 years ago. That's a hard one to swallow for me. But then they say, oh, it's just a matter of being humble. It's a matter of following the lead. Do you think I'm going to follow the golden calf? Idolize these men? There's nothing in here about the Bible. This is idolization of men. As we get out, we start rattling this stuff off and we realize, holy crap, we've been hooped. But we still have this crap in our head. Even though we figure out that we've been hooped, we still have moments of anxiety. So John says here, if you recognize that you do indeed have the power to create your own reality, you won't be a slave to anyone's criteria of how to be a man or a woman, or any other imposed opinions or judgments of yourself and how you should act or respond to various situations. And he goes on to say, at that point, you've liberated yourself from the dependence on external cues for validation and acceptance. So we don't need the Watchtower. We don't need their bomb volumes, JW org. That's all men. We don't need anything. We're here as people in life. We get to a certain point. Now, it depends where you're at. When you're really young, it's nice to have a mentor when you're young. So, you get into a trade, maybe you have a mentor. You're an apprentice, right? Maybe you want to be a plumber, electrician, carpenter. It's a trade program. You have a mentor. Well, spirituality too is the same. It's nice to have a mentor. So you go out there, you can find your mentor for spirituality. For me, it's easy. It's LOVE, love. It's the easiest thing in the world. God is made about love. God is love. If you want to know who God is, then you get to know who love is. And once you get to know who love is, you say, holy God. Anyways, I'm trying to be funny, but you'll become free to develop your own internal evaluating system based on your criteria for being a human being. It's easy. Love. Based on reality. Good neighbor. You practice good neighbor. Your car breaks down. You phone your neighbor up. Hey, when are you going to town? Hey, I'm going by today. Okay, I'll wait at the gate and you hop in and get a ride, right? Good neighbor. Neighbor knows you. You have to have people that you know when you're in trouble, or else you end up having to have two vehicles, two insurances. And I've been there. When I got out of the JW, I had to have two of everything because I didn't know how to have a good neighbor, didn't understand the process. But now, after some time getting out, understanding really what good neighbor is, it's just good love. Love people. Treat people like you want to be treated. And get to know your neighbors. Don't be afraid of them. They're not evil, they're not demonized, they're not twisted. That's all jw.org. They're the ones that have twisted what the world looks like inside our heads. So now we have to go out and untwist that. And for some of us, the only way to do it is to experience it, to get out and do it. So here's Drew's story. We're going to probably go through that. That gets us through that chapter. Yeah, let's read Drew's story. It's a little bit of a story. See if you can fit into Drew's story. Well, Drew worked as an attorney, definitely not a Jehovah's Witness. Wouldn't be allowed to go to university to work as an attorney. But anyway, some of them are attorneys before they become Jehovah's Witnesses. So let's say Drew was a Jehovah's Witness attorney. So Drew worked as an attorney in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. He was married with no children, came to therapy seeking help for what he called his freeway phobia. He reported that he had no other problems in his life and insisted that his life was great except for the driving problem. Well, Drew said that he was able to drive on surface streets and county roads, but he could not get on a freeway without experiencing severe anxiety symptoms. And whenever he tried to, enter the freeway, he experienced debilitating issues such as heart palpitations, labored breathing, sweaty palms, dizziness, and choking sensations. It hampered his life and his ability to get where he had to go quickly. Have you ever experienced that? This kind of a situation driving in traffic, if you live in some high traffic areas. Well, I know some people that experience that, and it's really tough. And they, in fact, some people can break out in hives, and they have to have their little asthma thing going because their lungs start stiffening up just from the traffic. And then some people just start cussing and swearing. They're just out of the blue. They're just not like that. You've never seen that, but in traffic, they just change. It's just, I've seen it. So, anyways, Drew admitted that he's always considered himself to be a mildly anxious person, but in the last 2 years, his anxiety had mushroomed into an anxiety producing freeway phobia. And it's serious. This is nothing to laugh about. It all started one day while driving home on the freeway from a stressful day at work. And out of the blue, he suffered a massive panic attack that almost caused him to pass out. And he was so scared by this that after the symptoms subsided, he drove himself to the emergency room at the nearest hospital. And they told him he was fine after various tests were run. There was no visible reason for his symptoms, and he was sent home with no formal diagnosis that added to his anxiety. I've seen that before as well. I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that on a job site. We put a young man on a job site and went on holidays, and he had an anxiety attack, and he had to go to the emergency room. They gave him Ativan, and it was just anxiety. He was just too young to be running a job site. Just that simple. So there's various things that can cause this. Now, Drew here, over the next few months, as therapy continued, Drew began to discuss some of the high standards he had held for himself, and also how often he was very self-critical. He acknowledged that he was a people pleaser and wanted to make everyone happy all the time. And he had been raised in a family where pretentiousness, like being a Jehovah's Witness, and always looking good, feeling happy, and being successful were very important to his parents. Could you imagine, for kids of a Jehovah's Witness, let's say elders kids have the most pressure. Now, from an age, the pressure was on him to live up to his family's standards and to follow in the footsteps of two seemingly perfect older brothers. Yes, one went to missionary school and one's pushing to be a circuit overseer, let's say, right? So, as adults, one became a successful criminal lawyer, and Drew looked up to him, viewing him as a model for a way a man should be. And his other brother was the head of a prominent movie studio in Hollywood. They were hard acts to follow. So, during therapy, Drew also shared that his work environment was very competitive, and the need to produce favorable results on a regular basis added to his pressure. He felt a strong need to achieve according to his family standards, and it stressed him greatly. Always to be a high achiever. You can think of a lot of these children that are in the org, and they're always pushed to be a pioneer, pushed to be a pioneer. It's like if you're not a pioneer, you're a failure. Okay, so he also admitted that at one time he had considered leaving the truth. Well, this guy was leaving the field of law to become a high school teacher, a dream he always had. So you imagine that. High school teachers make 40,000 a year, and well, maybe they make a bit more, but not much, even less, like 25,000 a year. But they don't make much as teachers. But a lawyer, what do they make? They can almost write their ticket 150 grand a year for sure. Okay, so it wasn't money. So during therapy, he also shared his work was competitive. He his need to achieve, and then he started opening up, and he admitted that at one time he considered leaving the law, becoming a school teacher, a dream he always had. And he believed that this was his true calling, but he was afraid of what his family and friends would think of him if he quit his job to teach, especially his mother. And he believed they looked down on him for not having a respectable and distinguished career. And he also admitted that sometimes he thought that he probably became a lawyer um, just to please his parents. It's like becoming a pioneer just to please your parents. So, who were also very accomplished. His father was a retired heart surgeon, his mother was an engineer. He grew up feeling inferior to them and deep down believed that he could never measure up to their level of success no matter what he did. Another important aspect of Drew's life was that since childhood, he considered himself to be very close to his maternal grandmother, who was a Holocaust survivor and a dominant matriarch of the family. He said she was more likely like a mother to him than his real one, and over the years she had been very open with him about what she had suffered through. Although he had always felt uncomfortable about listening to her stories, Drew felt obligated to be there for her at all times. He could never say no to her, and in time, serving as her private support system became his exclusive responsibility. He tried to be very careful to never add any additional pain to her life so that he learned how to walk on eggshells around her. And he later shared because of this relationship, he began to walk on eggshells around everyone. Doing what he could to please people and not say or do anything that could annoy someone seemed like a safer way of being. Have you ever felt like that? Where you're walking on eggshells around people? You're afraid you don't want to tip them off. A lot of us XJWs, we sometimes use this term like that triggers me. Oh yeah, that stuff triggers me. So we get triggered, right? So can we move past that? Well, let's see how we can do that. Drew came to the therapy to get help for his freeway phobia. And that's what can happen, right? Things can trigger us. Maybe we're looking at something, opening our minds to something else. Maybe someone else in the community, hey, check this out. And we look at it, we get triggered. Something triggers us, right? That happens. It's like a freeway phobia. It's the same thing. So, we can look at these different things trigger us. So it's interesting. So he came to therapy. He wanted to get rid of this, but in actuality, he discovered that it wasn't the freeway that was stressing him out. Interesting. Now we're getting down to the real jitty, the nuts of this. Okay. He himself was the cause of his escalating anxiety. It was his fault, not the freeway. Okay. Don't go out and shoot up the freeway. It's your own fault. He himself was the cause of this anxiety. He realized that he was going along with a conscious consensus reality that he learned at a young age that was very rigid and unforgiving about career, success, relationships, family obligation. He felt trapped in the perceived reality that his family had unwittingly imposed on him that had no wiggle room whatsoever to think or be different from it. But most important, he felt terrified that he would lose his family's love if he ever strayed from what was expected of him. Drew allowed this consensus reality to take over his thinking by adhering to the following inner dialogue, and we're gonna look at that. So isn't that something? It was nothing to do with the freeway. It had everything to do with the way he was raised and all of the preconceived ideas he put into his head that he had to be perfect, he had to be successful, he had to be this, had to be that. I knew a girl that went to school. Her dad was a doctor, her mom was a doctor, and she was an honor student, and she hung herself after she got out of high school. I don't know why. High expectations. It's too much stress for people. Suicide rate for JWs, XJWs is 10% higher, by the way, than the average population. So there is a problem here with us because of this stuff. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to dig this out and see how we can make some improvements. So here's the dialogue, the inner dialogue that Drew had to figure out. Number one, I hear it, to be accepted in my family and society, I must always be successful at everything I do. So to be accepted in as a JW, I must always follow JW org in everything I do. So to be accepted in my family and society, I must have a prestigious career. To be accepted in my family and the society, they call it the truth, right? I must have a prestigious career as a pioneer, as a circuit overseer, as an elder, as a ministerial servant, something like that, right? We have to push forward. They even have songs, push forward to maturity, things like that. And it sticks in our head, and it's there, and we're always thinking that's what we have to do. So to be accepted in my family, I must always consider the needs of the family first. See, I could say that's something that even went back to my worldly family. Okay, now if you're in a JW family, to be accepted in a JW family, I must always consider the needs of the family first. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's completely wrong. In a JW family, if you want to be accepted, you always must consider the needs of JW org first. I believe that's how it is. Well, they'll say Jehovah, right? But that's JW org. That's not. It's the same thing. Jehovah equals Jehovah's Witnesses. It equals JW org, and they should be proud of that. That's what it all equals. It's all the same pile to all of us people on the outside. So to be accepted in your family, JW family, you have to consider JW org first. Now, I want to go back. To be accepted in my family and society, I must have a prestigious career. It even goes further, like I must have a house. I must have, like you can't live in a trailer. All kinds of things. Even in lots of families, There's all these ideas. If you're in a house, oh, I have to have a dishwasher. I have to have a washer and dryer. I have to have all these appliances in a house. So I got to get the house. Then I have to have all these appliances. Oh, I need two washrooms. I have to have one washroom in case someone's in it and I need it. So I need two. And sometimes we get three. You have a family, right? So it's amazing. When I took over my mom and dad's house, they started, excuse me for a second. They started building this house, 5,000 square foot house, like for a big family. And all the family left and they got the house half built. They were living in the basement for like years. Like I'm saying years, 15 years maybe. So anyways, they were losing the land, and I ended up buying the land. I finished this house and I said, Mom and Dad, move upstairs. Well, they're in this huge ass house. My mom and dad, it was a huge ass house. The master bedroom was huge. It was like a bachelor's suite. It was like a studio apartment, the master bedroom. It was just so huge. So for some reason, they felt they needed this huge ass house. My mom and dad, worldly people. And I think for them, it goes back to all the neighbors, all these neighbors. It was a big farming area and they all had huge ass houses. So that's where it comes from. You could be in a neighborhood where everyone has huge ass houses and you figure you have to have one, you see, just because that's the standard. Now, to be accepted in my family, I should never disappoint anyone. Yeah, it's so you can be put in that position. I got put in that position many a times. Well, I put myself in that position, my good wife says. But we allow ourselves to get put in those positions, right? We allow it, right? That's what this is about. So this guy has this, to be accepted in my family, I should feel responsible for everyone's feelings. My mom used to be on me about my younger brother. Like, and she said, when I'm gone, and he lived with my parents until he was like 40. And then when they were ready to die, my mom says, promise me that he can live with you. And I says, no way in God's green earth is he ever going to live with me.
Explain that this was only like 10 years ago.
Yeah, this is only 10 years ago.
Like, you're not talking about young boys.
This is when I left the JW org. This all went down and I was looking after things out, helping out. And yeah, it's like that. So family can make us think that we have to be like that. And you got to fight back a bit. You don't have to accept your family's way of thinking. Now, to be accepted in my family, this is what this guy says, I should feel responsible for everyone's feelings. No, you shouldn't. This guy says, to be accepted in my family, I must make sure grandma never feels any pain. That's a lot of pressure, eh? You talk to my good wife about that one. She was put into a situation and she had to look after her grandparents. And she was a young girl looking after her son all by herself, no father involved, looking after this kid and looking after the grandparents until they died. And all the other kids ran. They all ran. No one wants to look after old people. So, yeah, we can put this stuff, we can take on these roles. Now, this guy says once Drew took his first step to identify that he grew up learning these hard and fast rules for being accepted, he was able to do the work to let go of the consensus reality that had dominated his life until now. And acknowledging it was the first critical step. So the first critical step is to figure this out for ourselves. Until you see where your problem originates, it's hard to do something positive about it. And once Drew acknowledged that the beliefs that drove him, he was able to claim his life on his terms and temper the stress that caused his freeway phobia. So he's still working on breaking the habits of responding with his consensus reality mindset that he was convinced was his only way, but he's much happier as he slowly creates his own reality, and he's looking into the possibility of teaching at least part-time after he gets out of prison because he shot a lot of people in freeway traffic. I just put that in. No, he didn't. But you hear of this. People get all upset in traffic and they pull their gun out and they go shoot people, and we think, what a terrible person. But here this person has these phobias that goes way back to his childhood, and it's nothing to do with traffic. Nothing to do at all. You know what I do in traffic? I just zone out and start dreaming about something else, waiting for the light to turn green or the traffic to start moving. Our brains are so powerful. We can escape reality too a bit. We can be in both places at once. But yeah, some people put the music on and start singing in their car. You can do that.
The point is, you're not focusing on the problem, are you?
Well, it's a distraction
Exactly.
from the traffic, right? We can get out of traffic.
I'll use that
Yeah.
next time.
Now, then that brings an end to that consensus reality part. The next part is the tyranny of the absolutes. The tyranny of the absolutes. And I don't know if I'm going to get into another section yet. It's quite involved. I think we covered that good, though. I think next week we'll start there, the tyranny of absolutes. So stick with us if this is a topic that interests you. It interests me. It's helping me to fix my faith, because there's more to it than just our faith. There's more to it than just how we understand the Bible. Way more to it. It's these words that we put into our head that we have. I did a poem about that a while ago. The words inside our heads that makes us do things. The words we put inside our head. So it's what do we have here? I could talk. Anybody look at the comments here a bit. Who do we have? Johnny's here. Hello, Johnny. Johnny the Greek from London. Thanks for being with us. The Big Game Player. Hello. Nice to see you. Big Game Player. Source of suicidal tendencies. Yeah.
Well, I'll link that thing
Sunk
later.
cost fallacy. Yeah. Well, thanks. You guys are commenting and following along. That's great. Just excuse me for a minute. A little better after I think I came down with something a little bit, but it's clearing up. When you go I noticed a change of season. We went from summer to now fall, kind of into winter, and the air is dry. That's what happens up here in Canada. The air gets dry, so our systems are trying to catch up, and we overproduce phlegm, of course. But
and when you go outside too, your body makes it to protect you.
Yeah. Anyways, it's been a blast, guys. We'll catch you next week. We're going to do this every Wednesday. We're going to cover this book until it's done, like an Elders book. There's more benefit in here than the Elders book. The Elders book's good for us, so it helps open our minds.
In yoga, whatever you do to one side, you're supposed to do to the other. So if you're going to read the Elders book on Mondays, then you should be doing this book on Wednesdays.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah. Clears your head. Balance.
In yoga, is it yoga?
Yoga, yeah.
What you do to one side, you got to do to the other side.
Of your body. Yeah.
When you do a workout. Yeah. You don't want to just work this arm out and
never.
And you got a great big muscly right arm, and then the left one's all doesn't work. Got to work. We got to be even. So we're going to look at the Elders book on Mondays, and we'll retrain our anxious brain on Wednesdays. And stick with the program on our channel tonight. We have Joe and Fran. Joe and Fran will be on. Join us with that. That's coming up at
5. So in 3 hours.
3 hours. So Joe and Fran will be on, and we'll see you guys all there.
Thank you.
Until next time, thank you again. Until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.